The change wasn't a sudden crash, but a slow, haunting realization. For 7 years, Joseph had crisscrossed the land, overseeing the building of massive silos that rose like mountains against the sky. People laughed at him, storing grain when the markets were overflowing. Why bother? But then the 8th year arrived. The Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, failed to surge. It became a sluggish, muddy ribbon. The rains in the highlands never came. By the middle of that first year of famine, the private stores of the common people had vanished. The once rich earth turned into a pale, cracked crust. In the streets of Memphis, the joyful songs of harvest were replaced by the dry rattle of wind through empty stalks. Joseph sat in his administrative hall, his desks covered in ledgers. A messenger burst in, breathless. "My Lord Vizier, the people are at the palace gates. They cry out to Pharaoh for bread. Their children are fainting in the heat." Joseph stood, adjusting his linen robes. "It is time," he declared. "Open the storehouses in the northern districts first. Set the price according to Pharaoh's decree, but ensure no one takes more than their family needs for the month." He traveled to the great storehouses himself. A massive crowd had gathered, their faces gaunt, their eyes wide with a mix of desperation and hope. When the heavy wooden bolts were pulled back and the doors creaked open, a golden cascade of grain spilled onto the stone floor. The smell of dry, sun-warmed wheat filled the air. It was the scent of survival. Joseph didn't just give the food away. He implemented a strict system of weights and measures, exchanging grain for silver. This kept the Egyptian economy from collapsing along with the environment. He appointed grain officers to manage the lines, preventing riots and ensuring the elderly and weak were not trampled by the desperate. Soon, it became clear this was no local drought. Word spread across the Sinai and up into Canaan. There is grain in Egypt. From his high vantage point, Joseph watched the first caravans arriving from the East Hittites, Amorites, desert nomads all, leading their thirsty donkeys toward his gates. He felt a strange tightening in his chest. He knew the famine would reach his father's house in Canaan eventually. He wondered if his brothers, the ones who had sold him into slavery 13 years ago, were even now looking toward the horizon, hungry and broken. That evening, Pharaoh called for Joseph. They stood together on the palace roof, looking down at a city that was eating because of one man's vision. "You have saved my people," Pharaoh said. "I have only been the steward," Joseph replied quietly, looking at the stars. "The true test is yet to come. The earth is only beginning to thirst." Joseph knew this first year was just the beginning of a long, grueling struggle. He went back to his maps, preparing for the millions more who would soon be knocking at Egypt's door.